We now continue with the second group of phyla of our invertebrates, starting with the mollusks. Mollusks include things like snails, slugs, octopus, squid, oysters, clams, all that good stuff. And some things about them is that they are bilateral. They're soft-bodied, although some do develop or steal shells. And they're also coelomates, which means that they have their own stomach and own body cavity for digestion. They mostly have a shell, or at least some kind of shell. They also have a fleshy foot. They will use that foot for digestion. Some will have basically a foot stomach. Some will have a head stomach. It kind of depends on the creature, as we'll learn about. And then many have what's called a radula, the equivalent of like a tongue that is able to help them digest their food. So groups of mollusks include the gastropods, chitins, bivalves, cephalopods, and we'll dive into what those different groups are with this picture. So bivalves, to valve, what we're saying is that they're able to open. These would be our clams, our oysters, our mussels, and they have a foot stomach. So they're actually able to take their foot outside of their body, and they'll use that to kind of move from one side of the rock to the other, or from bottom of the sand to the next part of the sand. Gastropod, that means foot stomach, they move with their stomach, allows them for movement there. These would be our snails and slugs. Snails are the ones that typically have a shell, where slugs not all the time. The chitins, they're kind of a group of creature that also will have a foot stomach, but in a little bit of a different regard, and their shell is made out of different plates. And then you have cephalopods, which means head stomach, or head foot, I should say, and they're going to use their head by taking in water and jet propulsion in order to move. So those are our squids and octopus that go in there. So here's a body plan of a snail. The radula, like I said, is kind of a tongue that will able to project from their body and help them shred up their food, somewhat their mouth. They do have eye spots, although not true eyes. They have some antenna, which allow them to sense their environment. And then a lot of their vital organs are protected in that shell, which makes good sense. Some of the organs that we see are what we have. So you see a heart, you see a digestive gland, or like a stomach. And then you also see the foot, and that's what allows them to move. And what's kind of unique is that here's their mouth area, and then their anus actually comes out of their shell. So there is a complete digestive system with a mouth and an anus. It's just not necessarily in the spot that we typically think of with some of our other creatures. Here is a image of a snail, what it looks like from a bottom. This is put on a piece of glass, so we kind of see the body structure from a different angle. Here's another picture of a snail from a different angle. And so it's still able to feed with its head end, or its radula, but it's using its foot stomach in order to move from one part to the other. Here's the body plan of a clam. So this would be bivalve, again, valve, two openings. And so a clam has kind of a unique body system. It does have a muscle that, like I said, kind of drags itself. These are typically filter feeders. They're not going to like nab onto any prey. And we see some of the organs. They will breathe through gills. Here's an image of a clam in the real life. So they're able to, when it's open, they're able to be kind of filter feeders. Now, naturally, if there's a predator nearby, like here you're seeing the starfish that's going to want to eat it, it's able to close in on itself with that shell and protect itself from some of its predators. So cephalopods, they include things like the octopus and squid. They take water in and then shoot it out, similar to like a jet in a hot tub, except we're dealing with a little bit less water pressure. These have been around for a really, really long time. Here's an artist's rendition of what it might have looked like in the bottom of the ocean at times. As we mentioned earlier, a lot of them have shells for protection because they are naturally soft-bodied creatures. We have a variety of different types of octopus. Some of them are just huge. And they have these big old eye spots. Usually deep-dwelling squids and octopus are either white or pink in color, or some that are more to the surface, like the cuttlefish, are able to adapt and actually change colors with where they're at. Speaking of cuttlefish, here's the body plan of a cuttlefish. So here we really start to get some of the complexity. We get a true digestive system with, here's the anus as well as the opening of where it's actually going to eat, or like the jaw. We see some of the digestive glands, so we're seeing organ and organization within these. And so those are our mollusks. So quite a variety of them, a lot of different types of them. One of the types of worms that we didn't really talk about in our previous presentation were the nematodes, or roundworms. And sometimes these go hand in hand with the mollusks because they're soft-bodied. But a couple of things about them is that they have a fake coelom, so these are pseudocoelomates. They do have the complete digestive system, which is unlike the flatworms, but the annelids, the segmented worms, do have them. A lot of these are parasitic, so here you're seeing a whole petri dish of different nematodes. This next picture is not for the ill stomach, but this is elephantitis, or a worm that has gotten into this individual. Not good. Eat food that is cooked. Finally, we get into our arthropods, the largest realm of our invertebrates. Whole bunch of different variety with these. Trilobites are those that have been around but have gone extinct. They were an index fossil. They were around for a really, really long time and help us figure out where life originated and what early arthropods might have looked like. The chelicerates are the spiders, the mites, and the scorpions. Crustaceans include the crabs, the shrimp, barnacles, lobsters, and then our group of insects, as well as millipedes and centipedes, are the biggest division of these. So the reason why they're so good is that they have an exoskeleton that's made out of chitin. That's what makes bugs crunch when you step on them. And they also have appendages that are jointed. So again, that allows for that protection, but also more motion. Some of the body segments are segmented, so they're a little bit immobilized in that regard, but it gives them that much more protection. They also are going to breathe either through gills or through lungs, or like the lung equivalent. And they also have a lot of specialized sensory structures, so a lot of antenna. We also really see a lot of division of labor with like males and females. If you think of like the queen bee, think of the worker ants, those would be what we mean by the division of labor. Okay, chelicerates. So these are spiders, scorpions, daddy long legs, mites, chiggers, ticks. They are also mainly terrestrial, although horseshoe crabs, and there are some spiders that live in the oceans, are part of these as well. And so a body plan, there's a scorpion, for example. We see some of the things that they have, a lot of more complexity than what we've had with our previous phyla. Tarantulas are also part of that. So the arachnids, if someone has arachnophobia, it means that they're deathly scared of spiders. So tarantulas are arachnids. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 legs total. And that's what separates them from the insects, which have 8 legs. Crustaceans include our, like I said, lobster, shrimp, crabs, and they are mostly marine. We do have some freshwater crayfish that you could find like the Mississippi. There are a few that live exclusively on land, but not too many of them. Here's some examples and pictures of crustaceans. So our shrimp, brine shrimp that we looked at earlier in the year, lobsters, boxer crabs, all of those are part of the crustacean division. Millipedes and centipedes, they are much a lot alike. The key differences here is that milli, that means million, centi, that means century or hundreds. So millipedes would have more legs, and it's not necessarily that they have more legs, it's just that they actually have 2 legs per segment. It's kind of hard to explain, but if you think of it like having, let's see if I can draw this, something like this, that is what millipedes look like, and this would be like on one of their body segments, where centipedes, if it's a body segment, it kind of looks like this. All right, and so 1 pair of legs, where these guys have 2 pairs of legs, and so that's why they get this. So it's not literally that they have millions of legs, it just means that they have 2 per segment. So if we look at that kind of blown up, we can only see 1, but there would actually be another set right here. And then on the other side, same thing, 1 set and then 1 set. And then the centipedes, they're a little bit more obvious. You are seeing what they have. Centipedes are oftentimes poisonous. Here you're seeing a centipede, a larger centipede, eating a frog. They are usually pretty darn good predators as well. Insects are our biggest realm. The insects, they have different divisions of them. So when we talk about complexity, We get a lot of specialization. We get a lot of having certain mouth parts that allow them to eat whatever it is that they eat. So if they eat leaves, they have specialized structure in their mouth to do that. If they eat, if they're carnivorous, they have special plants to do that. So if we look at some examples, the grasshopper, the butterfly, the mosquito, the fly, they have mouth parts that kind of allow them to live the way that they do. So we have a whole bunch of different kinds of insects. They're obviously extremely successful. You have insects basically everywhere on planet Earth. You could spend a whole year or semester talking about the different kinds of insects that we have on Earth, but some of them are colonial, some of them live on their own. Here you're seeing some specialized mouth parts based on what they eat. We know that some are fructivores, they're going to eat fruits. We have some that are going to eat the sugars of plants and pollen, and a lot of them have specialized structure. Here you're seeing a moth and how it's got some specialized antenna there. There's just a lot of cool ones that are out there. Sometimes they get a bad name because they can carry with them disease, or mosquitoes can suck our blood, or sometimes they affect our crop. But the vast majority of them provide lower levels on the food chain and keep food chains going. Here you're seeing a black widow spider, extremely, extremely poisonous. Ticks, we know that they can impact and transmit a lot of diseases. Scorpions are somewhat poisonous, and they have that spear at the top of their tail. We know that mosquitoes are found basically everywhere on Earth. So arthropods are everywhere. I'd like to conclude this by talking about our last realm, the echinoderms. So it literally translates into spiny skin. These primarily live in the ocean. These would be things like sea stars, sea cucumbers, sea urchins, brittle stars. They typically have radial symmetry, and some will have bilateral features, but mainly, they're going to have the radial symmetry. So here they are, and then when we get into our next part of chapter 26, we're going to start to get into those chordates, or the vertebrates, when we get into this realm. So echinoderms, there's a bunch of different kinds, as we mentioned. Here's some pictures of them. They have what's called a hydrostatic skeleton, meaning that they use water in order to keep their structure. And you can look at some of the anatomy of the sea star if you would like to, but they just are kind of unique. And that concludes our discovery on our invertebrates. Please make sure that you use all the resources possible just to kind of give yourself the best chance of learning these different invertebrates. It's a lot of new words. There's obviously a lot of different species of these invertebrates, but anything you can do to kind of separate them based on commonalities or characteristics that they have, that's going to give you the most success on the tests that'll be coming up. So that concludes our presentation on the invertebrates. Please let me know if you have any questions. Send me an email, and I'd be happy to answer them. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.